Welcome back to Chapter 20, Part 4. Wow. So we are discussing biogeochemical cycles, and I wanted to discuss phosphorus and nitrogen and fertilizers and how human activities can alter aquatic water ecosystems. Okay. So we like our lawns short. We like this grass that's short-rooted, which means that when things go into the soil there, they flow through really quickly. There's not a lot of roots to hold it in place. Like tree roots will decrease erosion, it'll hold the nutrients and water better. But this short grass, everything moves through it really quickly. And where do you think it washes to? It washes to our aquatic ecosystems. So whenever you spray things on your lawn, whether it be fertilizers, pesticides, weed killer, that very quickly washes into our water. And if one person were to do it, it wouldn't be that big a deal. But when everybody does it, what you see happen is called eutrophication. So eutrophication, you have algae take over. This is why the Green River is green. So it relates well to Kentucky. Algae loves the nutrients. It has these huge algal blooms, lots of growth. And then, because you've got all this algae on the top, taking out all the oxygen during its growth, and you don't have any plants at the bottom making any oxygen, you have very low levels of oxygen in the water. So anything in there that requires oxygen, say fish, can die. So there's the same lake during an algae bloom and without. So that's an important issue for Kentucky as well as the rest of the world. Other issues, water contamination and usage. So for example, this is Lost River. The water here can be contaminated by local factories, and they've seen that happen. And this is showing how everything moves through. So we're in a karst region, which means we have lots of caves, lots of limestone that can get taken out. And everything that you put in there runs down to water in the spring. So all the fertilizers, nutrients, wastes seep in to the drinking water system. We have to do lots of filtering to make it able to drink. Bigger picture, this is the Mississippi River. These are all the tributaries that lead into it. Lots of farmland all over. And so what happens is you have all these nutrients coming in, and so this water has very low oxygen. And when it finally goes into the Gulf of Mexico in the summer, when you've got lots of fertilizer in there, lots of growth occurring from the algae, you get what's called a dead zone. So here you can see that sewage runoff, agriculture runoff going into the dead zone. Hypoxia means low oxygen, so that's the same thing as what we were discussing before with eutrophication. Just discussing. And here's a picture showing where the dead zone water meets the ocean water in the Gulf of Mexico. There were some videos that showed the dead things in the dead zone, seafood, crabs, fish, but I didn't think that was necessary for you to get the picture. So what can we do to decrease this issue? You can think about planting more trees in your yard, more grass that has deeper roots, decreasing fertilizing, decreasing pesticide and chemical use. So what can we do after things have gone poorly? I want to talk to you a bit about conservation and restoration biology. If you really like conservation biology, I am also teaching a conservation class in the fall. Come check it out. Okay. So people have altered ecosystems. We've talked about all the ways that we can do that. So conservation and restoration want to find solutions to these problems and reverse the negative consequences, reverse the bad things that have occurred. So conservation biology, that's more about understanding what's going on there and making sure it doesn't get worse. Whereas restoration, you're actively reversing it. They go very hand in hand. So conservationists want to maintain natural areas. They want to keep important ecosystems and how different ecosystems go next to each other and work together to make this whole community of species viable. So like in this picture, you've got water, some wetlands, mountains, forest, all next to each other, and that can help house lots of different creatures. Landscape ecology is looking at how we use the land use. So I've briefly discussed before edges between ecosystems, where when we fragment our land and have more edges, that can alter the animals that are able to live there. It also can change the soil there and what's on the surface of the land, the different plants that live there. So there's natural edges, whereas these are straight edges created by humans. You can have movement corridors between areas. So they've got some of these in Canada and Europe, where they're bridges for the wildlife to pass over. And some people didn't think they would use them, but they do. Not so fun thing though is wolves learned that deer use it, and so then they hunt there. But overall, it's helpful to keep species able to move from one area to the other. And deer have better luck if there are wolves there than if there are lots of cars. And they put one in Africa where they didn't think the elephants would get to it. There's miles and miles and miles of fence, highway, and they put in one spot where they could cross, and they thought it would take years for the elephants to find it. They found it very quickly and started using it as a bridge between two areas. Bioremediation is really neat. So what you do there is you use plants to remove toxic substances from contaminated soil or even water. So for example, my pond, we had ducks, and they went to the bathroom in the pond all the time. The pond smelled bad, it was really dirty, water was really unclear. But this spring, our lily pads grew up, and as they did, you could see the water get clearer, it lost its smell. That was bioremediation. So here's a much larger scale example where you can use these long-rooted grasses, wildflowers, and then you've got waterways where they put plants in, and that cleared up the water. So another example of restoring an ecosystem is the Kissimmee River. And what happens with a lot of rivers is naturally they meander. And people like to straighten it out. They like to put in dams. They like to control the water movement. So what they wanted to do with the Kissimmee River is to remove those dams and reservoirs and re-establish the river. So here you can see the natural flow, and that they removed this dam and they plan to remove more. That helps the ecosystem. Last, I want to talk to you about a very important topic. It's very dear to my heart, and it's sustainable development. So first you need to understand what sustainability is. Sustainability is simply using resources at a rate lower than or equal to what can be replenished naturally. So using the amount of lumber that a forest can provide at a rate that the forest can reestablish, and you won't cut down all the trees. Taking water at a rate where you're not taking more out of the water aquifers, those storage springs, than rain can replenish. And it should be a goal for people to be more sustainable. So how do we do that? Well, you need to be able to maintain people, planet, and profit. When you have all those things coming together, you can be sustainable. So you have to do sustainable development, you have to manage it, and conserve the resources. So we need to really depend on continued research and increasing technologies. We know the sun will continue to put out energy, so if we can harness that energy at a rate that we can replenish and pay back whatever we have to pay for in solar energy. That's a good one. Uh, Understanding the ecology of an environment, how many fish you can take out of a system before you're overexploiting it, where that line is. And you need to connect this to people and economics. So people in Africa wouldn't be killing 100 elephants a day if there wasn't an economic need for them to make money. It just wouldn't happen. So we need to help with ecotourism there and find other things for them to do before we can really fix the problem. A lot of this is about education. And we continually need to conserve that biodiversity and help people. You can't just do one. You need to work together. Education, decreasing the birth rate, all important factors. And we humans have this desire. We love nature. You look at cute pictures of baby animals and it makes you feel good inside. You look at a picture of nature and you can breathe better. That's called biophilia. Bio, life, phil, love. So you love life. This is E.O. Wilson. He writes really good popular science novels. If you have time, read them. So most biologists, and hopefully you, have a concept of this love of life and incorporate it where you can. So these are all me. That's a little dick. It shook his leg when you petted him. And we need to be better custodians of the biosphere. Try to do the best that we can. No one can do it alone. Everyone should help. So think of the ways that you can be better stewards of the earth, because everyone, no matter how well you're doing, you can do better. And it can be just little things. And what I'd like you to leave you with is Carl Sagan and the pale blue dot. So in this picture, that pale blue dot, this little mote of dust, that's the Earth. You've got this whole huge cosmos, and he says it so much more eloquently than I can. And that's all we got. This one spot. And nobody's gonna help. Nobody's gonna come save us. Everybody you've ever known, everybody that's ever lived is there. And it's up to us. So do what you can. Tell people what you've learned. Look at ways that you can be more sustainable at your job, at your home. Talk about it with your kids, with your loved ones, and do what you can. So everybody can do a little something. Thank you for listening. Congratulations on finishing the Bio 112 videos. I appreciate your time.